From Pocketnow.com, this is Pocketnow Weekly.
Hello, and welcome to episode 13 of the Pocketnow Weekly, a once-a-week podcast from Pocketnow.com, where we discuss what's hot and what's cool in the world of mobile technology, smartphones, tablets, and especially today, phablets. I'm your host, Michael Fisher, senior editor at Pocketnow. I'm joined, as usual, by our editor-in-chief, Brandon Miniman. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
And our managing editor is back, Anton D. Nadja. Good afternoon to you from America.
Greetings from Romania.
Thank you. It's great to share the airwaves with you again, Tony. It's been a little while.
It's good to be back. I'm still recovering from my vacation, but it's good to be back.
I bet you are. Yeah. How did you enjoy your week away? I didn't even ask you that.
It was jam-packed.
Was it?
Yeah, indeed it was. I thought I'd have some time to defragment my brains and to plug in myself to recharge a bit, but unfortunately, no. Plans differed from the reality.
Well, that does happen. In a good way or a bad way?
Unfortunately, in a bad way.
Oh, crap. Oh, I'm sorry.
Things just pile up and lots of things to do, lots of things to take care of, and everybody wants a piece of you. So, yeah. But now I'm back, and now I'm recovering from my vacation.
Remember the days of defragmenting your computer?
Yes.
And how horrible that process was?
And watching, like, it because I had to run my defragmenter in DOS. I think it was 6.2 I was running on my first PC. And, like, those, you know, that cursor, like, the hard drive was represented by those little rectangular blocks indicating.
Those were the clusters, man.
Yeah. And, like, they would change color as the defragmenting got to. It was awesome.
And of course, today with solid-state drives, we don't have to. But did Macs need to be defragged when they had mechanical hard drives?
I feel like
every mechanical hard drive has to be defragmented in order to optimize the placement of the information. I mean, it's moving heads on spinning disks. The less the movement, the faster the hard drive.
Right. Yeah, I remember there being some defragmenter apps offered. I just figured that that was a good question though, Brendan, because I thought that maybe OS 10 or the Mac OS handled writing to drives differently than PCs.
Right.
But let's we've got a ton of stuff going on here today, including some really boss listener mail at the end of this thing. I mean, the listeners brought some awesome stuff. So I want to get to that, but there's a ton of stuff between here and then.
Did they also attach some rotten eggs and potatoes?
No, they love us this week. It's great.
It's all boss all the time.
It's all boss. That is boss.
I love that word. That's going to be like the new cool word. Like it used to be fat.
Yeah,
F-A-T.
fat and a fresh as well. Oh, that's.
You think fresh is coming back?
It is if I have something to say about it. Yeah.
That's a good one.
Isn't that a good one?
It's very clean and fresh.
It is, isn't it?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, slang. Let's both Brandon Miniman and Anton today have some pre-news and editorial bits that they want to bring up. So that's exciting to me. Brandon, why don't we start with you in the editor-in-chief's corner?
It's finally got a name.
It's sort of got this weak name. Sorry. Go ahead.
Nice. Thank you. So real quick, or maybe it won't be real quick. Who knows how it turns out. I was kind of thinking about the Galaxy Note 2 because there's been so much fanfare about it. There have been so many events. There have been so many. There's been a lot of news about the Galaxy Note 2, and Samsung is pushing this, I think, maybe harder than the Galaxy S3, if that's even possible, if not as firmly as they did. It's going to be on all carriers. It's going to be unadulterated with no carrier branding except for on the back, and it's a really big device for Samsung, and rightly so. I mean, it's beautiful hardware. It's innovative. It's really smoking fast. Michael's been testing it, and we're gonna have a review up probably by the time you listen to this. And I had a thought. I've used the Note. We all here have used the Note 2. Michael's used it the most, and there's something unsatisfying about it. So I still really like to write stuff down. And just yesterday, I was writing a list. And, 10 years ago, I would write stuff down all the time because we didn't have, smartphones to type into and so forth. But it was kind of different for me yesterday because I was writing down a list of topics. And I was thinking to myself, you know what? I would love if I could search this list. But it's analog. I can't do that. Furthermore, I would like to rearrange this list, and short of using an eraser that I didn't have on my pen, it's impossible to do so. So the Note 2 is this awesome opportunity to bridge the world of analog and digital, and it does it in some ways, but and I haven't used it as my daily driver, so I can't really say whether this is the case. But I think there are some ways that the Note 2 could be better. And of course, there are some software features, and I want to ask both of you what you think would be killer features that would really bridge the analog and the digital. But the first thing that I want to say is the thing that comes to my mind is the reason I like to write things down is because of the tactile. I like the friction on a piece of paper. When I get the Galaxy Note 2 stylus in my hand and I write on the screen and it glides along the screen and it's almost like on a skating rink, even though they've increased the coefficient of friction or whatever, it's still not like writing on paper. And I wish that there was some screen technology, some hybrid mode where, like, when you pull out the stylus, the screen, like, becomes textured like a piece of paper. And I think that would be incredible. And that would not only make it feel better for the user, but it would help the software because it would slow down the stylus pen and perhaps let you write more accurately. So I want to ask you guys, what do you think? What kind of feature do you think Samsung would have to bring forth, or any OEM, to make the bridge from analog to digital really complete?
Well, I don't have a specific answer right at the moment. I will in a second. I just want to say that was an entirely awesome thing that you just said, all of that. I agree completely with everything you said regarding phablets in general and the Note 2 specifically.
Well, we're the same person, right?
Yeah, we are. I mean, apparently.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I would never have thought of the of changing the texture of the display, even though I wrote a piece on that recently when the stylus comes out. And that's entirely possible because you can do that with forthcoming, touchscreen technology. They just apply a voltage, some kind of current across the display that changes its perceived texture. Now, it does that for fingertips, not necessarily for styli, but these things are going to be possible. If they're not possible right now, they're going to be possible in short order. So I think that's one of the greatest ideas I've ever heard with regard to a note-taking device or a stylus-equipped mobile device.
Wow.
And Tony, what do you think?
I'm not sure about this texture thing. I mean, it would be a good thing in terms of feeling what you're writing down, but I'm not sure it's doable right now because all of our screens are protected by an extra layer of glass. Maybe how about to include a small vibration rotor and motor and the stylus itself, and whenever you are acting with the stylus on the screen, it will emulate some vibrations like you feel on paper. But that's not what I wanted to say initially. What I think, here's what I did a couple of years back when I was running a PC. There was a software which allowed me to create my own font. And I've created my own font out of my own handwriting, not because I love my handwriting, but because I love handwriting fonts.
Oh, that's awesome.
Now, I think it would be possible with such devices to create your own font and not only use it device-wide, but creating your own font from your own handwriting would allow you to search your input in a note. Brandon said that once you write something down, you cannot search it and you cannot rearrange it. While you can rearrange it by copying and pasting the bitmap itself, how about writing it down? The system recognizes it as your handwriting font, and it's instantly searchable as a font.
I'm trying to think about how that would work because
it will probably be an initial setup process where the system would ask you to enter with your own handwriting a couple of letters, maybe the entire alphabet, and use that just like Siri and S-Voice are learning your voice. It would continuously improve and learn your handwriting style, your inclination, the shapes of your letters, and that way it could transform your input into text and it would be searchable.
So what you're doing effectively is drastically improving the effectiveness of the conversion to text.
Yes.
Because it already knows what a Tony A looks like.
Yeah. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that is cool.
Yeah.
That seems possible today with software.
Yeah,
I'd
it does.
imagine. That's awesome.
It definitely does, and yeah, like I'll notice when I'm inputting text with the S Pen on the Note too, like I'll make kind of repeatable errors, mistakes, where like I draw my E really stupid, right? And the software always thinks that it's an A with an accent mark over it or something like that.
Yeah, but most of the times your input is recognized because as far as I've seen your S Pen lessons video, which was a great video, and if you guys haven't watched it, you go online to our YouTube channel and watch it.
Thank you.
You can input with your handwriting. Say you write an email, say, "Hi Tony, your voice sucks this morning," and you write that down with your S Pen on the screen. It will transform it into the text above. How about it would leave it like that, but still recognize it as text and be searchable?
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. Just a quick side note there. That's when you see me actually writing successfully in that S Pen video, it's because I'm trying really hard. It's not easy to do, especially in a situation where, especially in a real world situation. In a video, there's a controlled circumstances. I'm like, I want this to work now. I don't want it to work now, so that I can demo how it doesn't work. If I'm out on the street and somebody's trying to give me their phone number or whatever, and I want to write it down because that'll be faster than typing it in for some reason, it's really, really hard to do. I think it would be great if it learned your handwriting over time.
Let's not forget one thing, guys. I'm not sure about you, but I can speak for myself. In this technology era, I almost forgot how to consistently write with my hands because I'm nonstop using my keyboard and my devices. If somebody gave me a piece of paper to write a statement 1 page long, I'd probably, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Had a sore hand.
Have you? I was just going to say, my hand actually cramps up earlier now. Remember in school when you would have to write all day and your hand would cramp up?
Yeah.
Now it happens after like a half a page, and I'm like, wow, are my like writing muscles atrophying in my thumb? This is ridiculous. So.
That's amazing. And then once in a while you hear someone in like the New York Times or someone on the radio, talk radio, mention like the lost art of writing stuff. And I'm like, who the cares?
I know.
Who cares? I can type so much faster than I've ever been able to write.
Me too.
People can actually understand what it is that I'm and I mean, just on and on and on. Like, I understand that there's like an art of calligraphy and, the handwritten note. There's, back in the 50s when they did that, 60s, whatever. But like, I maybe just because I was born in 1986, I don't care about the death of handwriting. I think it's a good thing.
This is the same argument I was making with regard to books, and I know that's a whole different argument or whatever. But ultimately, what we're talking about is communication, right? And if you are receiving my communication in a manner that I can compose it faster and I am more comfortable doing, I mean, then what difference does it make how it is delivered? It doesn't.
I guess communication might be two facets. There's communication should be effective. Communication should pass through an emotion or some sort of sentiment. And you could argue that writing with your hand, you can somehow convey sadness or elation.
It's more personal, yeah.
Sure, and you
personal.
can, yeah, I mean, definitely. And I've written notes, I've received notes that have like certain words. It's not very obvious that they were pressed hard into the
with the perfumes and the lipstick kisses and stuff.
I need to start getting the notes that Tony's getting. That sounds fun.
Send them to me, man. That sounds exciting.
Why don't we hop on over to. Speaking of not that, Tony, what I understand you want to talk about waiting this morning, is that right?
Yeah, I've recently became a waiter, but not in the serving dishes garçon kind of waiter, but in the type of waiter that's a person who waits a lot lately. And just to keep it short, I'm waiting for ice cream sandwich on my Galaxy S3.
Wait, sandwich?
You mean
for Jelly Bean, I'm sorry. Okay. I'm also waiting for Jelly Bean on my HTC One X. I'm waiting for the Android update on my Nexus 7. I'm waiting for my iPhone 5 to be delivered. And I'm still waiting for Nokia Bell Feature Pack 2 on my 808 PureView. Wow. So yeah, this makes me a waiter. But guys, just think about this. Why are we so eager to get these updates? I know Michael touched upon this 2 podcasts or 3 podcasts before this, but why is this? I'm checking for updates every 2 hours. Am I paranoid?
That's so interesting. That's an interesting thought.
It's like everybody has it and I don't.
So is your question like, why do we keep hitting refresh as the culture Okay.
Right. I think there's two different answers to that. I think one.
It's just like when you copy paste something and you Command C or Control C like 5 times.
Yeah.
It's like enough to do it once, but we
Right.
do it like 5 times.
Yeah, well, I think that a big part of it is what you said. Like, I mean, not everyone else, but we perceive everyone else as receiving these updates. Like, it gets talked about on the internet, it gets leaked, there's news stories, whatever. 4.1.2 is out. Some people have it. It's like, there's that instant, if you don't have it, there's that instant feeling of, I'm missing out on something. I need to be able to experience this for myself. I don't want to see somebody else's video and they're hands-on and whatever. So I think that's the geek answer. Like from a broader cultural perspective, that might be that might be the same answer in both cases. See, I unless there's a feature I'm really waiting for, I don't care. I still haven't received Jelly Bean on my Galaxy S3 because it's a Verizon version, and I don't.
Mine's global and I still don't have it.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
But I'm waiting.
Right, you're waiting. Yeah, well, you're a waiter. No, I don't know. I think it goes back and forth for me. If there's a feature I'm really waiting on, then I'm really excited about it. If there's not, if it's just like bug fixes and incremental stuff, then I don't care. I don't even look at that refresh screen.
Brandon, how many times do you hit refresh on your devices?
Well, I go a step beyond that. I care so much about updates that the day after the announcement of a new version of Android, for example, and someone rips a ROM from like the new Nexus or whatever, and then they port it to like a device totally not intended, and there's warnings like phone doesn't work, Wi-Fi doesn't work, nothing works. I'll still install it because I want to experience this new operating system
I'm
first.
not crazy.
and Michael, you mentioned sort of this aspect. There's the geek reason for it, and then there's a cultural reason for it. And I think that we've been retrained in a way. I mean, people generally like newness and change. Well, I shouldn't say people like change. People don't like change. People like newness. When it's 2 years is up on your contract or 18 months, it's time to get a new phone. You take it home. You stare at it from across the room. You love it. Mm-hmm. And software has an interesting can do that in a way. And we used to be in this 2 or 3 year release cycle. Like back in the 90s, there's Windows 95, Windows 98, and we started to get used to this idea of new software bringing new features and bringing newness. And then something changed in the 2000s. We started to get yearly updates. And then in some cases, updates that were occurring between yearly updates, just the .0.0.x updates that added landscape support or something like that, like on the Nexus 7. And so people have that emotional attachment to software updates like they do with new products that they take home because their 2 year contract is up. So and then they become kind of addicted to hitting the refresh button because they want to get that. It's kind of like a high of seeing the new features.
Yeah, it's almost like it's in the same family of feelings as receiving notifications all the time. Where there have been, stories written after, like story upon story is written, where it's like, are you experiencing smartphone addiction? Like, because every time you look at your phone and it's blinking, you experience this little minute wave of like, oh, somebody wants to what. So
yeah, that's on a different scale.
Yeah.
I think that's like a micro feeling of getting a major software update. It's like that emotion of having some sort of experience that is, it's low effort and it's free.
Right. Yeah. Did I miss something? Did the Nexus 7 get landscape support? Did I? Is that what's rolling out now?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I really got to. I've had my head in the Galaxy Note 2 for a week. I haven't even picked up my Nexus 7. That's cool. That's really profound thoughts there. Tony, I hope you get some updates soon, man. That's a lot of updates to be waiting on.
Me too, yeah. And before we go into Note 2 land, I just want to ask you something adjacent to updates. Did you get that update which enables the multi-window feature?
Yeah, I sure did. Yeah.
How do you like that? I'm really curious about it.
So if your listeners don't know what this is, the Galaxy Note 2 was announced. Before it was released, Samsung was like, check out this awesome dual-screen multitasking that you can do on the Galaxy Note 2. And then it was released in South Korea, and it was released in an unlocked form. And, it didn't have that feature. So Samsung was quick to release a software update that turned it on a couple days later. And I was so busy that I almost didn't notice it, and then it was like, oh, software update. And I was like, oh, good. Well, maybe this will stop TouchWiz from crashing. And it did fix that problem. TouchWiz now no longer crashes. But it brought this new feature. So it's awesome. And
Ooh.
It is awesome. I talk about this in the review, and listeners, we mentioned this already, but the Galaxy Note 2 review, if it's not up, it's going to be up very shortly after you hear this. So you're getting a little bit of a little spoiler, a little preview. But what you do with this is Samsung calls it multi-screen. Samsung loves calling stuff. Like it can't launch a new feature without a name, and sometimes they're imaginative, and sometimes they're really not. But so multi-screen.
They should have called it S Window.
I figured that's what they were gonna. It's like S Window, S Pen, S Voice. What you do is when you're running the device, like say you're in at the home screen, you just press and hold the back button, and it opens up this little dock on the side of the screen, which is scrollable, and it contains about, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 apps. These are the only apps that are available for multitasking. It's kind of like the Kyocera. I don't want to say this at all, but this is true.
Don't attach them.
This is true in the best way possible. It's like what the Kyocera tried to do with the Echo, except it actually works well. There are more apps available for it. Like, for example, Twitter and Facebook are supported. And what you do, if you just pick one of these apps from the dock, you just tap on it, it opens the app full screen. But if you press and hold and then drag one of the apps onto the screen, while another app is running, it will open it up in half the screen. So all of a sudden, like right now, I just did it, and I've got my Gmail running on the top half of the screen, Google Maps running on the bottom. So if somebody has sent me an email with an address, I can look it up in Maps. Essentially, it's using the bigger display size of the Note 2 very intelligently, because this 5.5-inch display is more than big enough to display two apps at once. And
so is it like having two separate displays in landscape, like, I don't know, HVGA or two WVGAs, one above the other in landscape mode?
Well, one above the other or one next to the other. Like it's portrait and landscape, you can do either one. And you know what it's like? It's like the Snap feature in Windows 7. That they brought in Vista or 7 or whatever it was. So you've got one app on one side of the screen, another app on the other side of the screen, and the best part about it is they both run like butter. I mean, there's no lag, there's no delay, there's no indication that the phone is struggling at all, even though both of these apps are not only running at the same time, they're both in focus at the same time. Like jumping between them, you don't have to specify which one you want to work with. They're both active all the time.
I wonder why they weren't able to do that on the Note 10.1, which literally pauses the app and then restarts it after 35 seconds.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that in the review. I don't know. I will have to
maybe
poke
they
this
will.
for deficiencies. Yeah, maybe they will. Maybe they'll bring it to the Note 10.1. The only thing that I have found is that when you're jumping into this for the first time, like after a fresh boot, I think maybe, I'm pretty sure, and I haven't verified this, so this might not be true at all, but it seems to me that this would be the kind of activity where the phone would clock that Exynos, quad up to the full 1.6 gigahertz. It seems like a pretty intensive application, right? And I'm sure it's using almost all that 2 gigs of RAM. But I feel like maybe there's an initial delay when you first enable multitasking after a boot, because I was trying to take notes in S Note while I had the Facebook up in the other pane, and for the first 5 seconds I tried to do that, the pen inputs were lagging by 5 seconds. And I was like, "What are you doing? What?" No, you're so good. What's the matter? And then it was like, "Oh yeah, no, I'm awake now." So it was just but that's the closest I've gotten to erroring this out on multitasking.
Question.
Yeah.
These kind of features excite me because anything to increase productivity while on the go is awesome. Can you give me a couple of use case scenarios where this has improved your experience on a mobile device?
Yeah, this particular feature?
Like in what cases has the split screen helped you?
The first time I ever used it, right after I installed the update, I had Facebook open, and my buddy just moved to Chicago, and he took a picture of this Logan Square sign. I don't know where Logan Square is in Chicago, so I kept Facebook open. I dropped Maps into the other pane, and I just typed Logan Square, Chicago. And while Maps was figuring that out, I was back in Facebook, re-looking at the picture, and then it popped up. And so on one pane, I'm looking at where he is on a map. In the other one, I'm looking at the photo he just took from that that location. You know what I mean? So that's not necessarily a good productivity example. I mean, it's more like social, it's entertainment, I know, but it's, that was really cool to me for the first time being able to do that.
Wow.
But you can have your email application in one window and your, I don't know, browser in another one.
Yeah.
So you can just send an email while you're browsing or checking out the URL and vice versa.
Or you can have YouTube
It's a
open.
shame that there's only 10 or 12 apps that can use this.
Right.
Is this going to be open to third parties, or will new ones be added? Do you know?
I think that, Samsung, there's been some noise made about that. And I hate it when manufacturers kind of do that, because I don't hate it, but it's like, oh yeah, we're going to open this up and devs are going to be able to write stuff for it, and then whatever. And then kind of what invariably happens is nobody writes it. Yeah, exactly. But I think that has a solid chance of happening with the Note 2 if it is in fact open to devs. But the apps that are enabled for it are Chat On, Chrome, Email, Facebook, Gallery, Gmail, Internet, Maps, Messaging, S-Note, Google Talk, Twitter, Video Player, and YouTube. So honestly, that's a really
much
good
all you need.
suite. Exactly. And another thing I was doing was I was watching YouTube. I started a YouTube clip, and I'm just watching YouTube in one pane while in the other one I'm like, reading email from Tony. It's like it brings the experience of using this device so much closer to a desktop computing experience.
I think we lost you, or at least I lost you for the last 5 seconds.
Oh, you did? Brandon, did you lose me as well?
Yeah, I lost you, but it's recording on your end, so it should be fine.
Right. Okay. Well, I'll just say it again, and maybe I'll cut it back. It brings the experience of using the Galaxy Note 2 so much closer to the desktop computing experience in a good way.
Which so I asked you in what cases would you benefit in terms of productivity. You just to answer that question, you just look at what you do on a laptop or desktop. So you have your chat running while you're on the web, or you have your email client open while you're on the web, or you've got your Twitter client open while you're IMing. But it sounds like because of that limitation of the 10 or 12 apps. And I wonder if the system checks for some sort of parameter before allowing it to show up in that menu, because Google Voice, that would imply that Google worked with Samsung, and I doubt that's the case. It's got to be something about Google Voice that allows it to work in the multi-window mode.
It's Talk, not Google Voice. Sorry.
Oh, well,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So
I think the applications are being tricked into believing that there is a smaller resolution available, and they max out to that smaller resolution, which is, depending on portrait or landscape, the width and half of the height, or vice versa. That's as close as I can get to a normal explanation.
You might be right on that. I mean, that seems like a simple solution, and it seems like maybe that's what they're doing here. I'm not sure what the nuts and bolts are. The implementation is really, really good. And another thing that's kind of in the same family as this, and some people probably think this is less impressive. I think it's really cool. You guys remember Pop-Up Player from the Galaxy S3? How you could, start a video and then pop it up into like a little screen-on-screen window, and you could watch your video while you were doing other stuff.
Yeah.
On the Galaxy Note 2, Samsung has taken that concept and applied it to the browser. So I have my default browser set to the pop-up browser, meaning that if I'm in the Twitter feed, which I'm always in, I'm always looking at Twitter on the phone, and there's always links in tweets, because, it's like us. We post stuff, and it's like, hey, I just wrote this story, here's a link. You can click on the link, and the pop-up browser will open, but it won't take over the window. It just pops up in a little window by itself. You move the pop-up browser window over wherever it's out of the way while it's loading the page, and while it's loading the page, you just continue in the Twitter feed. And when the page is ready, you go back to the pop-up browser, you read the article, and you can make it full screen, or you can exit it when you're done.
Is this pop-up browser a special browser, or is it Chrome or the stock browser?
I think it's the stock browser. It is the stock browser in a smaller form. The only kind of downside to this is that when you maximize it, if you want to go full screen, it always has to reload the page. I don't know what that means, though. I don't know why it would have to do that. Like, it loads the full page. It's not like it's loading a mobile version or anything like that. It loads whatever you click on in that smaller window. So I don't know why it has to reload every time you take it into full screen mode. But that's a minor inconvenience. It's just another one of those things where it's like, hey, we have this huge display. Let's not just scale up Android elements and make it into a huge phone. Let's actually use it for something useful. And they're both really, really handy features, and I love it. It's just endlessly surprising to me how much more utility this device has than I kind of expected it to.
And how much you were against phablets?
I wasn't against that. I was only against him if you were a commenter looking to pick a fight with me, and then I became against phablets magically. I think for some guys are so enthused about the phablet concept that even using the term, like they seem to think that it is a pejorative term, like it's an insult. And it's like, no, it's just a phone tablet hybrid. It's a cute name for actually what I thought was a lame concept when I first heard of it, but which actually makes a lot of sense. And let me tell you guys, you cannot take this device out in public without being asked about it. Brandon, you remember this. I met Brandon in New York City last week for an AT&T event. We were not out of the subway station 25 seconds. I'm walking down the road with the Galaxy Note 2 because Brandon wanted to see it. We were kind of playing with it. And this, like, what was he, a traffic cop?
Yeah.
This traffic cop was like, "Oh, is that the Galaxy? Is that the new Galaxy?" Which has become the default thing for any Samsung Android products. Like, yeah. And then he wouldn't let us go. Like, we talked for like 6 minutes about this thing. He's like taking out his S3. He's like, "Oh man, yeah. I mean, I got the S3, but man, look at this." I was out at a bar last night because it was a horrible night, and I needed to go to a bar late at night. And fortunately, there was no iPhone 4 incident, but I'm playing with the Galaxy Note at the bar. There's like 3 people talked to me inside the space of 3 minutes. I'm at Dunkin' Donuts, the coffee shop this morning. I'm waiting for my sandwich to show up. Somebody's like, "Hey, whoa, that's big. What is that?" I was at a brewery recently. There's absolutely nowhere you can go where people are not going to ask you about this device because it is huge. And you get to a point where you're so comfortable holding it that you're like, wow, I forgot how huge this device is, and the public has to come along and remind you.
That's so funny.
It's amazing. But yeah, you definitely can't have a moment to yourself when it's out in public because
It'll be funny for you to get back to a 4-inch or sub 4-inch screen.
I don't know if I want to. I mean, it will. Yeah, you're right. And finally, because I know we have to move on, it makes the experience of holding my Galaxy S3. It makes the Galaxy S3 feel like a miniature phone now, and I'm not even being. I'm being a little jokey, but that is entirely correct. When I hold my Galaxy S3 now, it feels small. And it really only took me about a day for that transformation to happen. And that's strange. I think that says something frightening about us, that we're so instantly adaptable. But yeah. Anyway, look for the full review, listeners. It's going to be on the site very soon if it's not up already. And it's quite an impressive device. I like it quite a lot.
I've been just checking again for my update on my Nexus 7, and it's still not here. So I took that opportunity to check all of my updates. Nothing yet, but I'll keep you posted.
And Tony is still waiting.
I'm still waiting.
Can you just tweet that periodically, like every hour? You just tag every OEM. Let's while we're talking about Galaxy products and high spec ones at that. I just read this story this morning. The Galaxy S3 Alpha has been unveiled, or Galaxy S3A, which apparently is a Galaxy S3 variant that is physically identical on the outside, but has the same specs internally as the Galaxy Note 2, which is to say it's running that Exynos, 4412 quad, running at 1.6 gigahertz instead of the 1.4 of the original. Yeah, and then 2 gigs of RAM instead of the one that shipped with a lot of versions of the Galaxy S3. Wow. I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but look at you go, Samsung. You're like, what? I don't get it. Maybe are they just doing this because they can, or what?
Well, is it coming to Europe or the US?
This is in Japan on carrier NTT Docomo, but as Tyler Seddington commented, cheers, man, in the comments, it's also available in Australia.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So what I think of this is that whenever Samsung came out with the Galaxy S3, the Exynos processor in that format didn't support LTE, and this is why US carrier variants went with a Snapdragon processor, dual core, and LTE. But as they continued to improve and they launched the Note 2, that quad-core 4412 processor, which is the same processor by name, but I think they made some tweaks, that supports LTE and the faster speed. And now they're just using that for the Samsung Galaxy S3, which is okay for them. But as I said myself, and I will repeat it, I will be so pissed if I had a U.S. variant with a contract on a U.S. carrier, but that's whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever we do in this world, you buy something now, and 2 weeks from now it will be old.
Yeah, no, it's true, and I don't know how I feel about, like, Tony ends this post with, "Don't you wish U.S. variants packed the 4412 quad and LTE instead of the dual-core Snapdragon?" You know, I don't know if I do. It seems like every instance I have, and I talk about this a little in the Galaxy Note 2 review because there is a little bit of lag on the Note 2 at points, very minor. Don't get all crazy, but it seems like every single time I test an Exynos quad-core chip, and then I test the Qualcomm variant with the S4, the dual-core one outperforms the other one. And I'm not talking benchmarks, I'm talking UI. It seems like, I don't know if it's this Crate versus Cortex thing, you know, or what, but, you know, it's just, I'm always more impressed by the Qualcomm running version. So I don't know. I don't have a massive desire to get more quad-core hardware in the States, because is Android even? Do we even know if Android is fully optimized for quad-core yet in Jelly Bean?
That is a good question.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Who knows? I don't know. I mean, there's actually even more to talk about with that, because in a second with another Nexus device. Announced with a Qualcomm processor. But before we get there, can we just touch on the Galaxy S3 Mini?
Oh my God.
I'm so disappointed.
Yeah, apparently everyone is. So yesterday I've got my head down, I'm banging away on this review, and I just noticed Twitter explode for a second, and I'm like, why is everyone mad on Twitter? What's going on? Apparently Samsung is, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, Samsung has created a device that looks like a small Galaxy S3 but packs none of its specs. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true.
What's the deal here? We're looking at...
You know what the big disappointment is all about? I don't think it's about the specifications. It's about the Samsung executive going on record one day prior to that, or I think it was the same day the specs got leaked, and he said on record that the S3 Mini will pack the same specifications as the S3. So normally everybody gets excited, and in your face, Apple, 4-inch, higher specs, here's the iPhone 5 killer. And then a couple of hours later, we see the leaked specifications, and it's just Mini. So it's S3 Mini, half of everything the S3 has.
Yeah, it's got a dual-core SoC from Ericsson, from ST Ericsson, at 1 gigahertz, 1 gig of RAM, a 5-megapixel primary camera, a VGA webcam, 16 gigs of storage with micro SD, battery is 1,500 milliamp hours, and it's Jelly Bean.
And it's expensive.
Oh, yeah, it's 515 bones. Wow. And then there's a picture of it in the wild, yeah.
They had such an opportunity to do a killer device here.
Yeah, I mean...
And another, like, industry or category-defining device, like a pocketable, really fast, really well-done, high-res screen phone, but...
Yeah.
WVGA, come on.
WVGA, come on. I could build a better phone in my garage. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, let's do that.
You want to? Yeah, we should have a video segment on that. Can we do that? A 10-week video series? Brandon Miniman builds a mobile phone in his garage.
You know what really pisses me off? Not the fact that the S3 Mini has lower specs, because it's a smaller phone. Probably the target audience is different. What pisses me off is the fact that they are using... I have a dog who's barking here. It's not my dog. The S3... They're using the S3 moniker. They're trying to capitalize on the success of the Galaxy S3 by naming this little fella the S3 Mini. And to get back to your post, Michael... with the dilution of the Galaxy brand, this is the perfect example on that.
You're absolutely right. I mean, they're not satisfied simply with diluting the Galaxy brand name. Now they want to dilute every iteration of the Galaxy brand name. And they started doing that with the Note, too, with the Note 10.1, which I get. That's a different thing. I actually kind of don't mind that, because I understand what they're doing with that. But look at this. Yeah, this is absurd.
Guys, what happened with that? I'm sorry.
No,
go ahead.
What happened with that naming convention we heard from Samsung last year, with the S being the high range, high end, the M and the Y? Why couldn't they just name this the Galaxy, I don't know, Y2 or M something? They're naming it as an S phone, which is high end, but this is far from high end.
It really is.
Maybe they'll surprise us. It's getting announced today, and Maybe maybe they put misinformation out there to lower expectations on purpose.
That would be crafty of them. You know what though? It's not the only tiny phone Samsung is bringing to market. I was originally going to talk about this in a second, but let's just get it out of the way now. The Galaxy Music looks to be a phone that's kind of in the same size range. So it's called the Galaxy Music. Once again, it's another Galaxy product. And I love Stephen Schenk's headline. Samsung announces Galaxy Music, one weird little Android, because it really is. It's this. I thought it was a music player. I thought this
it is. I think it's an MP3 player which makes phones.
Right, but which makes phone calls. Right? Yeah. It's. But I thought it was that. The 5-inch Galaxy player with the top and bottom speakers, because it kind of looks like that in the photo until you realize that it's totally small. It's listeners, if you haven't seen the story, it's a little tiny little device that has cool colors, and it has speakers top and bottom of the display, which is cool.
And also a rumored or so far unconfirmed projector. I've heard some reports that there was something on the press release, but not in the renders. Did that get debunked?
It hasn't been updated, but from the story it says it gets weirder. The official specs Samsung released also mention a Galaxy Beam style WVGA Pico projector. I think that's probably a slip up on somebody's, somebody didn't take that out of their Galaxy Beam document when they converted it to the Galaxy Music document. But it's a very unusual phone. I think the most interesting thing to me, besides the fact that it seems to have a hardware music button, which is interesting, is that it is a phone. Like, it looks like a little personal media player, and they tacked a phone onto it. Which, of course, begs the question, as we asked first at Berlin, Tony, and then in New York City last week, Brandon, why couldn't they just put a phone on the Galaxy camera? Because then things would have made sense the world over.
Mm-hmm. Then they would have called it the 808 PureView.
True, yeah. 808 PureView S.
Man, that Galaxy camera, that's how I'll refer to it. That Galaxy camera.
That Galaxy camera.
I'll stop there.
God, yeah.
I keep on wondering about this music button. I mean, you get a phone in your hand and you press the dedicated shutter button and you take a picture, and somebody of your friends has this small little music phone, and you get it from him or from her. You snap the button and it starts playing music.
Yeah, it starts playing, like they're trying to take a picture of you, and it starts playing the most embarrassing track. It starts playing like the Spice World album from the Spice Girls.
Oh,
that was a pretty good album, I have to say. Anyway.
Okay.
Did you guys see the movie? Oh, it was horrible. No. Horrible. Saw in the theater. That is true. Let's stop talking about Samsung Galaxy products because it's getting confusing. The next Nexus device, one of the next Nexus devices, is probably going to be an LG-made device.
And you know what?
What?
I feel a lot better about this than I did. I was.
Yes, told you.
Yeah. I think Tony has an "I told you so" moment. When I first heard about this, I let out a long grunt of displeasure, and I fill in a lot of negative emotions here. But you know what? It looks pretty awesome. I love what they did with the backing. I love the fact that the front and back panel look to be completely flat. It looks like a Galaxy Nexus, and it's got a design that I don't think we've ever seen before. And plus, it's going to be running stock Android. LG cannot screw this up. The design's good. The software is going to be good. I think it's going to be an awesome phone.
Wow. Bold words. I think it does look like a Galaxy Nexus. I think you're right to a degree. It's like a Galaxy Nexus with a shinier bezel and a back that is actually really sci-fi and really, really cool.
Yeah.
But it's not like when the Galaxy Nexus was announced, I was like, oh, well, that's a cool design. It's not. But, it's not really doing a lot. It's not quite minimalism either. It's just like there's not a lot here to look at. So, okay, whatever. Tony, what were you going to say? I'm sorry.
When I usually protect or defend Apple, everybody calls me a fanboy, but I've been known to protect and defend LG. I'm a fan of the brand, and I keep on giving them one more chance, and my last one more chance was the Optimus G. I'm yet to see how that phone performs, but from what I see, this Nexus 4, or whatever the name will be, is a modified version of the Nexus of the Optimus G, and it looks good. LG has improved a lot in terms of their build quality and materials used, and as Brandon said, it has no applications or user interfaces proprietary to LG to run on top of Android to screw it up. So it's Google software on a nice, I wouldn't say very nice design, because it looks exactly the same as the Galaxy Nexus and the Nexus S. So I think this might have a chance of succeeding, but, and here's the but, I think, and this is my personal opinion, this will be the only Nexus phone we'll see.
You do? You think that there won't be any other Nexus devices alongside this? Huh?
At least not officially wearing the Nexus brand. I think Google might or might not adopt other phones in the AOSP project, like they did with the Sony. But officially, Nexus phone, I think this will be the only Nexus phone we'll see. I'll eat my words, but this is what I think right now.
That seems reasonable. It seems confusing for the consumer that watches the Nexus brand if there were like 2 or 3 of these things.
Yeah.
I would. Oh, go ahead.
Well, there are several Nexus devices on the market already, though, right? I mean, you've got the tablet. And there's usually, like, the Nexus S and the Galaxy Nexus did coexist for a while on the market there. So, but I get it. I know they don't want to pull a Galaxy, right? Is what you're saying?
Yes, but never the same release in multiple OEM-made phones.
Right, yes,
they are that different generations, but from the same generation, there's always one.
Very true. Yep.
I have a theory on why Google went with LG on this Nexus.
I would love to hear it, because I'm confused.
Me too.
Yeah, it would seem like an unlikely combination, given that LG is sort of a fourth place player here. But it's in Google's very much best interest to have a strong LG, because right now Samsung is owning, and then behind them we've got HTC. We've got Motorola, who is now owned by Google, of course, and we'll probably see a Nexus phone from Motorola soon. But it hasn't been that long since they bought the company. And then we've got LG, and right now I don't think LG has a good brand image, generally speaking. And if they can improve LG's brand image, they create a stronger fourth player, or maybe third or second player. And competition's really good in Android, and it's in Google's best interest to have as many strong partners as possible.
So you think they're well, and look at what they did with ASUS, who outside of tech circles and people who buy Windows notebooks, not a lot of people knew the ASUS brand name before the Nexus 7 came out. You could probably make the argument that they still don't. That ASUS branding is very minimal and very tiny on the Nexus 7, but they have a stronger market position, mindshare position than they did before. So that's completely valid. I think you might be right. Google might be going a little out of its way to be like, hey, LG, build our next awesome thing so you can be a little more awesome, so that this ecosystem can continue to thrive. Because go ahead.
That, and not only that, I think Google is making the smart move here. They're showing some love to every OEM. First it was HTC, then it was Samsung twice. I'm not sure what happened there. Now it's LG. I'm not sure if Motorola will ever have a Nexus phone. Again, this is my personal opinion. I'm not sure why, but I don't see any Motorola Nexus devices.
They've got to.
I told you this will not be the Motorola Nexus, and I'm right again. Maybe next one. But I think they're showing some love. My money is on Sony for the next Nexus.
On Sony for the next thing? No way.
Yeah.
Let's actually can we make a bet at some point? Because I will just say it. We will see a Motorola Nexus device before we will ever see a Sony Nexus device. That is what I believe. Okay. Do you want to bet some Palinka? I'll bet you some American West Virginia moonshine against some Romanian Palinka.
Okay, you're on.
What?
Long story. Berlin Tales.
And not the topic of this podcast.
Not the topic of the podcast, no.
Hey, on a related note, or sort of unrelated.
On a related note, I'm drunk. No, what?
On a related note, I've been drinking since 2. I have to remember these things. LG Nexus S4 has a 1280 by 768 screen apparently instead of 720. So it's higher res than most Android phones out there. The vast majority of them, which I think is it's not that many pixels.
The difference will be taken up by the on-screen buttons.
Right, but if you compare it to the Galaxy Nexus, which already has the bottom 40 pixels taken up, it's going to be maybe you have a true 1080 by 720 and then the buttons. That's probably what it is.
Oh, I missed a little bit of a spec here. I thought that the LG Nexus 4 here was shipping with a Snapdragon S4 just regular, but it looks to be possibly shipping with the S4 Pro.
S4 Pro,
the quad core. Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. That's another reason to get excited.
Yeah. And we haven't seen one of those or handled one of those in the wild yet, right? A device powered by the S4 Pro?
The only device powered by this Pro chip at the moment is the LG Optimus G, which was announced like 1.5 weeks ago.
Yes. It'll be really cool to see how that performs because, yeah. Anyway, we'll have to see what happens there. To wrap up the Android news of the week, Google has done this really interesting thing, and I'm sure the timing wasn't explicitly intended, but it certainly is a happy accident. If not, Google has implemented their biggest Street View update ever. Tony, this was your story. You've got a list of countries here that are now supported in Street View.
I think they were working on this and they were planning on gradually releasing it, but seeing that Apple is right now
writhing
a little bit
pain.
Drowning a little bit, I think they just took their hand, placed it on Apple's head, and pushed them below the water again.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, normally this wouldn't even be a story I'd want to talk about, but the fact that Google's doing it now while Apple is embarrassed.
It's look, this is what you all missed.
Exactly. It's kicking them right in the face. And, go ahead, Brandon.
Oh, how did you know I was going to say something?
You do that sharp intake of breath. It is very easy to tell when Brandon
the man has to breathe when living.
I was just going to ask if you guys have ever seen a sighting of a Google Street View car.
Several.
You have?
Yep. Several.
Oh, no, I never have. Oh, that's cool. It's got to be creepy, Tony. That thing looks like a robot, doesn't it? Doesn't it have that big ball on top?
Yeah, without making any commercials or ads here, I've seen a couple in my hometown. They were some Opel Corsas, small cars. Oh. They had those 360 cameras on top and lots of cables and strings and... on the sides, they had some cameras too, and then I saw them in Hungary, in Poland. So I've traveled a lot in Europe, and I've seen 4 or 5 times the Google Street View, the Google Maps cars.
Wow.
Imagine that job. Just drive around. You have 4,000 miles this month.
I would love that.
That'd be either awesome or terrible.
Or horrible. It'd be like being a trucker, I imagine, except without as much stress, probably.
Well, yeah, but imagine this. If you are making the maps with your car, how do you find your way in a city?
That's a solid point there.
Until then, I'll take this opportunity to tell you that I still have no updates.
Thank you for being thank you for the persistent updates on your lack of updates. Let me just scrolling through here. The thing this actually kind of nicely segues into iOS, because I'm tired of, I don't know about you guys, I'm tired of talking about Mapplegate. I hate that term, but
even though we invented it. Steven did.
What?
Yeah, Steven did.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that's actually really awesome.
You have to love it.
Well, now I like the term. No, I'm just sick of it. I don't hate the term based on its merit. I'm just so tired of it. But it continues to be newsworthy. And I got my first real taste of it this past weekend when I ran into my whole family, and many of whom, a couple of whom have Apple products. And my sister is carrying her iPad around the house and is bothering me while I'm trying to talk to somebody else. And she's like, "How do I downgrade?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about, Lexi?" And she's like, I'm like, "What do you mean?" And she's like, "I hate the maps. They got all messed up." I'm like, "Oh wow, really? Hold on, let me see what you're talking about because
now she's got your attention."
Exactly. And she just would not stop hating on it. And then I go to the brewery that same day. We're in the tasting room of this beer brewery. People are asking about my Galaxy Note 2. The conversation turns to smartphones. And these total strangers are just talking my ear off for 15 minutes about how much they hate the maps on their new iPhones. And until this past weekend, until these experiences, it didn't really register for me just how much regular people were annoyed by this. I didn't necessarily think it was just geeks, but I know geeks tend to be a lot more vocal. We tend to really, hate on stuff very loudly. But no, regular people really, really hate this stuff. So it's really interesting to see. That this story where developers apparently tried to warn Apple about these problems with maps before iOS 6 officially dropped. This came to us from CNET via BGR. It looks like where developers actually were just emailing Apple employees directly saying, finding all these bug reports, and they either didn't get acknowledged or they got acknowledged very rarely. And it seemed that Apple was just really well aware of these maps issues and was just dead set on going ahead with iOS 6 anyway. What do you think happened here? I mean, do you think this was a planning failure? Do you think this was a stubbornness? Did something specific go sour with Google really quickly?
No.
Like what is it?
I think that Apple backed out from the Google relationship in terms of maps, and that particular discussion probably happened somewhere way before iOS 6 got gold or public. And once they started seeding betas to developers and testers, their relationship in terms of maps was second to none. So, I mean, no, it was non-existent. It was too late for them to say, okay, our maps suck, let's get back Google Maps, because they already burned that bridge down.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. It's a shame to see that happening. I keep thinking that I keep telling people in between, telling them like, yeah, listen, here's this leaked app that gives you Google Maps functionality, but only about a fifth of it, or download Bing Maps, or whatever. I keep kind of trying to give people hope with their new shiny iPhone 5s. I'm like, no, it's a great device. Just Apple has no choice but to make maps better as fast as it can, so that's what they're going to do. So it's going to take some time, but I feel like they're going to do that. I feel like they're going to really bring it because they have to. What are you going to do? You can't have a smartphone, a top-tier smartphone, without a good mapping program.
No, they will definitely improve. The question is, how will users survive until then? And I hear in my home city in Romania, I'm using navigation only when I want to compare phones or applications. And there's no problem with iOS maps here in my city. I mean, navigation is okay. The streets and their names are accurate. I can navigate without a problem from point A to point B. The problem is you cannot find point A or point B by searching. So the POIs are the problem, because if you long tap and hold on a certain point and you navigate to that point, it will just get you there without a problem. The problem is when you search for something like museum, like the shopping center, there's no POIs. So if you know you're going from this point to this point, it will route you. But if you don't know where you're going, you're just tapping in, I want to go to the museum, it doesn't know where the museum is.
That's interesting, because I think Brandon and I ran into that issue a couple times in New York City last week, and we had talked about wanting to do this maps off, right? Where I'm running an Android phone, he's running an iPhone, and we're like, let's try and navigate to the same thing. But I couldn't do it because I was on AT&T's 3G network in the city on whatever that was, a Thursday afternoon near rush hour, and there's just no network capacity, no room for me. Yeah,
but a good indication. I was on AT&T too, but over LTE, and it was working, so that's a good indication.
Of course, yeah. No, AT&T's LTE network is rather boss, if you don't mind my saying so.
I love that word and keep using it. I am so surprised by how quickly AT&T. That's kind of silly because Verizon is absolutely everywhere. But it was around here where I live. It went from like in the course of 2 days, it went from being nowhere to everywhere. It was like 2 weeks before the iPhone 5 came out, and now I can't go somewhere in my day-to-day commute that doesn't have LTE, which is just great.
Isn't it great? It would be nice to get back on LTE. Speaking of the iPhone, just got to wrap up this the iOS segment here, which is very short this week. Not content apparently with beating up Apple over its Maps issues, some people started reporting this purple haze nonsense, which is I don't know, Brandon.
Drugs.
Yeah, it's actually a really good beer too. But essentially what this is lens flare, and I don't know why people just decided to start hating on the iPhone 5 for experiencing lens flare problems when, as Consumer Reports demonstrated via some testing, every single smartphone camera is susceptible to it. Even regular cameras are susceptible to it. All you need to do is watch the 2009 J.J. Abrams take on Star Trek to understand what lens flare is, because it's in every single shot as a stylistic choice.
I think the problem is not about the lens flare itself, but the purple haze.
But the haze surrounding the flare? Like,
yeah, whenever you get a bright source of light, just a little bit outside of the frame, it will, of course, turn into a haze. Now, whether it will be purple or pink or another color depends very much on the sensor, depends very much on the glass or material used to protect the camera lenses itself.
Right.
I've been taking out my phones like a moron and shooting into the light, like against every photography principle out there, just to prove my point that I'm not defending Apple. Every smartphone does that, and I have no doubts to say the word every, because cameras in these smartphones are still not high-end. Okay, 808 PureView aside. The problem with the Apple Purple Haze is that somebody somewhere somehow shot a picture into the light. If that happened with another phone, we wouldn't be talking about it, but it's
right.
Apple.
Yeah,
and we need the community needs to bash Apple at all costs. Of course. And this is what drives me crazy.
What idiot took a picture of the sun? Like, imagine
that.
How desperate do you like? Why don't you just go into a dark closet and take a picture and be like, I can't see a thing. It's so dark in here.
This is amazing. Like, I mean, these stories. This is a maybe 150-word piece from you, Tony, about the Purple Haze support document says it's normal and common. There's just endless threads of comments after this. Like, people, you hit it on the head, Tony. And people love to just destroy Apple
and they just
when they're
love
reading our
to
story.
Throw tons of phlegm in my direction.
Well, that's true too. Yeah, you are. What did you say in the email this morning? You are the sacrificial goat.
Yeah,
or the sacrifice goat, right? Man, let me ask you before I forget. I'm sorry. Let me ask you, on those other cameras that you tried it on, Tony, is the haze the same color? Is it purple?
That's exactly what I was going to say. The problem is I have proven to them that the haze is there on the Galaxy S3. The haze is there on the One X. There is a slight haze also on the 808 PureView. The haze will be there, and in this case, it's the same purple haze on every smartphone I've tested. What differs is the amount of color and discoloration which this induces into your final images.
And the iPhone 5's
Unfortunately, I don't have that.
Right, you don't. Right, because you are waiting.
I'm still waiting. Yeah.
Well, I think the moral of this story is, besides, stop looking for excuses to beat up on Apple, is everyone don't take pictures of the sun, right?
Or when you do that, you just live with the consequences.
Right.
Because if I recall well, every camera manual which I have read says that it's not healthy to point your lenses and your sensors towards the sun because your pixels might die eventually.
Exactly. Just like your retinas. So leave it be. Let's jump into Windows Phone before we get to reader mail. We have seen we've now seen what Nokia is doing, and what Nokia is doing with the U.S. carriers. I think it can safely be said. We have two stories of carriers announcing Windows Phone 8 devices. T-Mobile USA is releasing the Nokia Lumia 810, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, the Nokia Lumia 820 just
Yep.
with a different number, and probably support for those AWS bands that T-Mobile uses. And then Verizon is also announcing their Nokia Lumia 822, or not announcing. I think that one's just leaked, but. In any case, that is
They will
also
announce
the
it.
820, right, with a different number. And this jives with what someone told me in a discussion recently. Somebody who I will not mention, but who had some knowledge of Windows Phone plans, who was kind of very, very careful in saying Nokia has only announced the 820 for blah. We have no comment on any other model numbers or names for other carriers. It's like, oh, this is what you guys are doing. You guys aren't this exclusivity flap with the the 920 on AT&T. Maybe we'll see how that plays out. But really, if they wanted to, and if things worked out, they could very easily just release a 925 on Verizon if they wanted to.
That feels good, and I hope it's true.
Doesn't it? I hope it's true too. It seems. I hope that pans out that way, but it looks like initial indications are that they're going to be playing the model number change game, depending on what carrier Nokia puts their.
And not
devices
only
on.
that, if I was a Verizon customer waiting for the Lumia 810 or 820 or 822, I'd be pissed because this thing is ugly like sin.
Oh, that
I mean,
is a
just
good point.
Look at the 810 with those. Okay, the 810 is nice, sharp
Yeah.
corners, rounded edges, but the 822, I'm sorry. That's not my money.
It's ugly.
This is the other thing Twitter blew up about the other day, where I was like, why is the feed moving so fast? Oh, people are complaining. What are they complaining about? Oh, this ugly phone. Oh, wow, yeah, this is not pretty.
It looks like a Huawei, man.
It's got a chin. I mean, chins are like not cool anymore. It makes it look tall and unwieldy.
I like chins, but not a chin like this, where it's got those two nested curved lines in the corner. If you haven't seen this device, like the back of it actually makes it look like, okay, what? It's another rounded pebble.
It's like a turtle.
We haven't really seen the rounded pebble design aesthetic in Windows Phone, so I'm like, okay, whatever, that's okay. And then you look at the front, and it's like, oh, well, those rounded edges don't really work too well with the tiles, do they?
And but imagine this. They will at one point complain or ask themselves, why on earth aren't they selling phones? Why isn't Windows Phone catching up? Because of this.
Well,
this is just Verizon.
This is just
The other
Verizon's
hardware is
mid-range,
pretty-
right?
pretty-
Yeah, but
exactly.
you cannot, when you're Microsoft and your platform is Windows Phone and you're the third one with 4% market share, you cannot just say that's just one carrier, man. You need all carriers. You need all forces in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they also released the HTC Surround, remember? Like, I mean, they can't all be winners.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be like $19.
Yeah, it might be. It looks
maybe
like a low end.
This is a great free phone.
It would be. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
That could be a good theory.
Yeah, I don't know. In any case, we'll be able to order them soon because we have this rumored announcement of Windows Phone 8 pre-sale, pre-sale pre-order dates. Going to be, what is this? Opening over a week prior to the launch event on October 21st is the rumor. At least that's when AT&T is planning to open pre-orders. According to it looks like this came to us from The Verge. This would be cool. I don't do pre-orders usually, but I might do a pre-order if this opens up.
Let me guess. It's called Lumia.
It might be called
And the number
Lumia.
is 920.
It might be called Lumia 920. Yeah. Well, I finally got a chance to hold one, Tony, in New York City.
Really?
Oh, this is a funny story.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring this up. I'm glad you did.
Wait, which part?
Just to talk about what you thought about the 920, please.
Sure, yeah. We were at the AT&T event in New York City. They had a whole lot of devices from a whole lot of manufacturers. It was really, really cool. And the Nokia guys, first of all, everyone was so nice to us because as Tony pointed out in a couple emails, as a lot of commenters pointed out that you can see in the reflection, we were not we got there in a real hurry and we didn't have the proper equipment. So we're shooting a lot of this on mobile devices. I think I was shooting a lot of these hands-on videos with an iPhone 5. We were shooting some of the
but at
Galaxy
least
Note.
take the 808 PureView, man, for that.
I wish I had a pure view, man. Why didn't you give me yours? but we were challenged because it was such a loud event. They were playing some great music, so we had to go up on the rooftop to the roof deck every time we wanted to get some hands-on time with the device and narrate about the device and be heard on the video. And everyone was so great to us. HTC, Nokia, Samsung, AT&T. Seriously, everyone was like, "Yeah, we'll just step away for a second. We'll go up to the roof and we'll give you 10 minutes of our time so you can do this." So that was really awesome. Just a public thank you to all them. But I finally got my hands on the Nokia Lumia 920, and I got to play
Glossy
with it.
or matte?
That's what I was so jazzed about. So it is at this event that I found out. Even though we had posted a news story, I had just missed it, that there is going to be a cyan variant of the 920. And furthermore, first of all, that just made my whole week. And then furthermore, that the cyan variant is a matte version. The glossy ones, like the red one and the yellow one, are glossy, yes, but there are matte editions, including the cyan one, and it's just the same as the 900 in that material. And I'm just so excited right now. I just want to go pre-order it at the moment. So it was really great to get our hands on that. And I think Brandon and I had a slight disagreement about the heft. I think we had maybe like a 20-minute in-depth conversation about heaviness of a device versus its perceived quality and stuff like that. It wasn't a disagreement. It was just a discussion.
It was the deepest discussion I've ever had in my life.
It was profound. I was changed.
It was.
Do you remember, Michael, when we were in Berlin and you held the 808 PureView for the first time?
Oh, yes. Totally.
And you said it's heavy. And when you held it for like the fifth time, you said this feels so good.
It does. Yes. And that's, to be honest, the 920 has shades of that. I don't think it feels as good in the hand as the PureView 808, but God, it feels great. So, it was very nice to have now a more informed perspective on it, having actually held the thing. It's a shame we still couldn't play with the software because they're still hiding something from us.
Yeah, like the Ativ S, because if you guys check the landscape, there are 2 Nokia devices, 2 HTC devices. We're hearing of an Alcatel device, and the Samsung Ativ S was announced at IFA and is nowhere to be seen. No reports, no hands-ons. Yeah. There was one which was yanked, of course, but there's no buzz around it.
They didn't have one at the New York City event. I don't know what's going on with that. What are they up to? I don't know. Anyway, it was.
They just don't care about Windows Phone.
I guess, but they obviously care about Windows 8 because they've got all those Ativ tablets that we saw.
Yeah, but that's different.
It is. I don't know.
So the 920. So Michael, you found it. You liked its heft, right? You like that high quality feel. It's the weight in your hand.
I do. Yes.
Well, as we were talking about, I should say that the hardware on the 920 is pretty boss. It's extremely high quality. It's unique. It's gorgeous. It feels good in the
boss.
It's. I'll use that as much as I can. It feels good in the hand. The screen is just stunning.
Yeah.
But it's thick and heavy, and I don't like that.
Right.
And that doesn't mean I wouldn't use it and wouldn't like it, but it reminds me. I was telling Michael, it gives me this anxiety of the back in the day when every phone was thick and heavy. You had devices like the HTC Touch Pro 2, which was just like a deck of cards but longer and taller and thicker, and the Lumia 920 is like a deck of cards but a little bit thinner and a little bit taller, a little bit wider, and it's just. To me, it just gives me this weird sense, and I long for the lightness and the thinness of a Galaxy S3 or iPhone 5. And so it's just a difference of opinion, but it was interesting to see how our responses were so different to holding the 920 finally.
Yeah, no, you're right, and I forgot about that. And I think part of dealing with that thickness, part of the reason I can deal with that thickness okay is because I saw a teardown, which we talked about a little bit, or maybe a leaked internal component shot, whatever it was, maybe just a first-hand account of the PureView, the new PureView, and I'm making air quotes, the new PureView cameras for the new Lumias. Apparently, regardless of how not 808 quality they are, they're still rather hefty units. And the hardware that is required for that is a lot more akin to a sugar cube. Like it's a big component. So I think that is probably, this is just speculation on my part, but that is probably why the Lumia 920 needs to be that thick.
That's not a problem with me. I like heavy phones. I don't have that feeling that I'm going to drop it just because it's too light.
Right. And well, I mean, I think though that like it's easier for me to take if you can justify it. Like I'm willing to make that sacrifice. I'm willing to carry a thicker phone in order to have better camera quality. Right. Like I wouldn't be willing to carry a thicker phone if a manufacturer was like, yeah, we could have made this as thin as X or whatever, but we just wanted to throw in an extra half pound of rubber for no reason. It's like, okay, well then no, you know. I don't know. I think if there's a good reason for it, then I can live with it. So
fine.
Well, you know, we'll have to see. We'll have to get some hands-on time with the devices and maybe a cyan one, and we'll see.
I'd so much like.
What's that?
I was going to say. I was going to ask Michael. What did you think of the 8X?
Okay, so yeah, we also got our hands on the HTC Windows Phone 8X, and the that was. I was pleasantly surprised. Now that was quite a bit lighter than the 920, and also bigger in the hand somehow, but with a bigger bezel. So the 8X. I think I do like it, and I was very tempted by it. The design, from a design perspective, I really, really like the way that device looks and feels to an extent, but without the kind of special Nokia touches like the wireless charging and the Nokia software suite, and the really nice, well-engineered feel of those buttons on the Lumia 920, where like this clicky response was as good as an iPhone 4's volume keys, which are kind of the best. We really get into those those fine details. I think the HTC Windows Phone 8X just becomes less and less impressive to me personally by comparison.
Yeah.
I don't know. But if you like thin and light, you know, and if you like that soft touch feel instead of polycarbonate or gloss, then that's going to be a better device for you, especially if you don't care about wireless charging. We know I'm a giant fanboy for wireless charging, so there's that. Let's, just to wrap it up, speaking of HTC, sad story again. HTC is third quarter net profit down 79% from last year. This is in the Windows Phone category because I think that Windows Phone 8X and 8S now make a bit more sense. Why HTC made so much noise when they announced them, and why Microsoft is, obviously standing firmly behind them, because the company's not doing well. And that's really scary, because I like HTC so much. That's part of the reason I made a special effort to call out one of their commercials, the You campaign, in that post from a couple weeks ago about the best mobile commercials. Because I like HTC. I like what they do. I like the direction that they drive the industry in this kind of innovative hardware direction. Doing things differently. And I don't want to see them go away. I don't want to see them do poorly. So I really hope that they're able to pull out of this death spiral. Do you guys think the Windows phones are going to do that? I'm sorry, Tony. Go ahead.
No, I was about to say that I think right now HTC is experiencing the consequences of whatever they did 1.5, 2 years ago when we wrote like 3 or 4 Dear HTC editorials, and HTC was just releasing phone after phone after phone with the same outer aspect. And when you are in this business, you cannot allow yourself a period of 1 year, 1.5 years when you do not innovate. And the perception of the brand has shifted a little bit. And of course, Samsung was great to capitalize on that. And they just shifted, and Samsung became the number one Android OEM. Of course, we can debate if it's the world's number one OEM, but yeah. And I think HTC is now struggling to get back there where they were. The One family, which was launched in Barcelona, the X, S, and V are part of HTC's new direction, which we like. I just hope I think they need more innovation and to keep going on this road, which they started to switch back that perception to whatever it was before they lacked innovation.
Yeah, and don't forget that every company rises and falls, and literally every company throughout history has gone through periods of expansion and contraction, and Samsung's is killing it right now, and it's very possible in 2014 or something they make a lot of errors. Apple's been on top for a long time, and there's a lot of indications that they're having some problems, and HTC will probably find theirs again, and they have a good brand, and they've got a heritage, and they've got relationships, and they've got a place in a lot of our hearts as a company that was there in the beginning, and I guess they just need to. They know what they need to do. Everyone knows.
Yeah,
what they
but here's a free tip from me: fire your marketing department and hire new people. Because back in the day, I remember seeing HTC ads everywhere. When was the last HTC ad you guys saw?
Well, that's we're actually going to touch on that a little bit in reader mail too. But
Okay, let's leave it to that.
yeah, actually, why don't we use that as a little segue here to jump into that? So because we're running short on time. This is a really good point. It comes to us from John Luttrell, or I hope I got close to your pronunciation there, from Not So Sunny Scotland, who loves the show. Thank you for listening, John.
Thank you for listening.
I was just wondering what your thoughts are on how HTC can improve sales. I think the One X Plus will be great, especially with Jelly Bean. To me, the main issue, at least in the UK, is that most people have no clue about the One series because the advertising just showed some guy jumping out of a plane to take pics and videos. I think they need to look at marketing and get their products known again. That it is exactly what we're talking about. I completely agree. I loved the U campaign when HTC was focusing on its brand awareness, and we've talked about that. I've kind of talked that into the ground. But I think if they could get something like that back, this aspirational quality of like reminding you how important your phone actually is to you, and oh look, by the way, look at our One series. It does this stuff well for you. And then we can talk till we're blue in the face about how the camera's not as good and blah, blah, blah. But, man, there just needs to be, I think, more of it is the consensus, right? More of the advertising. Better advertising, more advertising.
And more innovation on the products, of course.
Yeah, which I think they're doing, though. I think that's the thing. I think the One series really could have been a bigger hit if only, and I completely agree with John here, that guy jumping out of a plane is eye-catching, but when you're doing these commercials, and I don't know what they're called in the marketing world, where you're just calling out one feature, and each commercial is calling out a separate feature. For some reason, it's working out for Samsung with their, they hold the phones back-to-back and they do the tap. I've written about it. What do they call that? Tap to share or something stupid.
Like you use it once in 2 years.
Exactly, right. But this is one of these features that's eye-catching, but no one ever uses. And probably is never going to use, but it works out for them because they're just saturating the market with it, and they have 5 or 6 different other commercials. In HTC, you've just got this one kind of gimmicky commercial. You're like, oh, cool, I can take photos while I'm taking video. Well, now everybody can do that.
Yeah,
that's not a thing anymore. Put out more ads.
Microsoft will help.
And put them in the right places. When I drive into Philly, I see at every major place where I might be looking at a billboard, it says in huge letters, the next big thing is already here, and a picture of the Galaxy S3. And I constantly am reminded about this next big thing concept. And somebody at Samsung marketing figured out that they should place billboards very strategically if they want to remind people. I mean, it's just smart marketing, and Samsung's doing a great job.
In marketing, this oversaturation can backfire, but until it backfires, it will just drive sales like nuts. So I just think HTC didn't find any empty spots to place their banners on because of Samsung.
Because Samsung would beat them to the punch on all of them, right?
Bought them all.
Well, we'll see. It would be so wonderful. I think the battle between I was expecting at the beginning of this year a great giant apocalyptic fight between the One X and the Galaxy S3. And we didn't get it because Samsung just rolled up, hit HTC right in the face at the beginning, and HTC hasn't really gotten back up.
Yep. Maybe the One X Plus.
I don't think that's it.
I don't think so.
I think maybe whatever the 5-inch is going to.
Yeah, that could knock off the Galaxy Note from its throne.
Exactly, because what I think is going to happen, I think the Note 2 is going to increase public awareness of phablets to a pretty large degree. And I think HTC, if they play it right, they can come in and kind of try and milk some of that.
Well, just don't forget, guys, 5 inches is not phablet territory these days. It was 1 year before this, but the Galaxy S3 is 4.8 inch and the One X is 4.7. 5 inch could be the same outer aspect and dimension as the One X or the S3.
Well, that's true. Yeah. We'll have to see how that goes. Let's jump into another piece of mail here. This is from Mike Bates, who wants to send us some well-deserved praise. Thank you, and a question.
Thank you.
First of all, I love hearing this. Your podcast is awesome and makes an early morning bus ride much better. That is awesome.
Yay.
Yeah, I love hearing about where people listen to us, like in their commute or at home or whatever. Second, Mike is wondering what your favorite phone is, not based off what is the best, but the one that you like the most, just in terms of unique looks or features. Just curious. Keep up the great editorials, videos, articles, and the podcast. Thank you, Mike. Guys, did something leap right to mind? Besides 808 PureView?
I'm looking at it right now. It's the 808 PureView, hands down.
I love that you're such an 808 PureView fanboy. That's awesome.
I love it.
Yeah.
Anybody can say anything about Symbian or Nokia Bell right now. It's a good little platform. Too bad they killed it. It can do anything I need. And with this camera, I always take it with me. So it's my main driver right now.
Cool. What about you, Brandon?
I'm kind of in this weird spot right now. I've been using the iPhone 5 as a daily driver, but gosh, I'm so tired of iOS. It's just making me depressed. And we're in this weird time period where we've got these awesome Windows phones coming out. We've got some new Android phones coming out. So I really don't know. I mean, it's either right now I'd be using Galaxy S3 or an iPhone 5. I'm just going to use an iPhone 5 right now because it's a little bit newer. And I'm enjoying the camera and some other features, but this isn't a good time to ask me that question. What about you, Michael?
This is not a good time to ask me either. I'm kind of between stuff. Obviously, the Lumia 920, I talk about it every podcast. I'm kind of like backed into a corner on liking that though because I love the features and I love from the camera to the wireless charging to the polycarbonate build to the whatever. But as far as unique looks goes. Aside from the Nokia Smile design, it's not bringing a lot that we haven't kind of already seen in the N9/Lumia 800/Lumia 900. So I think the HTC 8S is kind of my current favorite as far as a visual standpoint goes.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it's mid-range, but I say it over and over again. I really respect and admire it when companies decide to take a bold design step. And making a phone with a fluorescent color band around the bottom is bold, especially when one of them makes it look like a traffic cop, with a gray and neon green. So that's
tennis ball.
Yeah, tennis ball, right? Yeah. So that's mine. That would be mine for looks. Obviously, the 920 still wins on features for me. Thanks for the question, Mike. That was an awesome one. And to sum it up, for the last piece of reader mail from Philip, who lives in Cardiff, UK. The UK will be getting LTE at the end of the month and the major rollout of LTE over the next 2 years. I was wondering if LTE is a major leap in technology, and is it worth me selling my 6-month-old 1X to get an LTE device? Thank you. Oh my God, yes. It is a major leap in technology. We've written a couple pieces on LTE. I wrote one pretty recently about how it differs from 3G. If you want to look it up, Philip. It has absolutely changed the way I use smartphones here in the States. When I am not on an LTE network, I actually have a measurably less pleasurable experience. I don't like it. Whenever I come back to Boston after having traveled, I'm very, very pleased to be back in LTE coverage. It is the most major leap in technology I have ever experienced personally. And if I had a 6-month-old 1X that didn't support LTE, I would absolutely get rid of it in favor of an LTE device once it came to my neighborhood.
My answer would say it depends. I agree that LTE is amazing and awesome and faster is always better, but your phone's still relatively new, only 6 months old, and it's possible that you spend of the 24 hours in the day, you spend 10 at work and the other 14 at home, and maybe 13 at home and maybe 1 hour commuting. And so LTE for you isn't that big of a deal because you're always on a Wi-Fi hotspot at work or school and at home. So I guess if your phone was a year old or a year and a half old, I'd say, yeah, definitely. But since you just got your 1X, you kind of have to look at what your internet needs are and where you're using your device.
Well, that's definitely a smarter answer. I agree. If you want to be more fiscally responsible, the 1X is still a great device. And if you're on Wi-Fi all the time, then maybe it doesn't matter. But, man, having LTE everywhere, like not having to jump onto a Wi-Fi hotspot because you don't need to because you're actually getting better speeds over LTE, especially on a new, fresh network that nobody's on, that's a feeling that's tough to replicate. I mean, that as far as geeky pleasure goes, I think it's tough to beat that. So, I don't know. And Tony, if I'm right, you've not used an LTE network.
I have not. Unfortunately, in my region, LTE is not present. I've been reading some reports that one of the major carriers here in Romania will skip LTE and start implementing the next thing after LTE.
LTE Advanced?
No, it's called differently. I'm going to get some info and I'm going to get back to you guys on this. Okay. But I still have an answer for Philip. Philip, you said LTE will be implemented over the next 2 years. So at the beginning will be probably problems with coverage and speed and stuff like that. So by the time LTE will be stable, your now 6-month-old 1X will be probably 1.5 years old. So you're going to change it anyway.
Yeah, that's probably the best answer out of...
Depends on how big the itch is to get a new phone.
Is this the Everything Everywhere, probably the new carrier?
Oh, maybe. That joint venture there?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It's got to be.
But by the time they start with coverage and they fix all the problems at the beginning, you'll be fine selling, because by the time you'll sell your 1X, you'll not sell it because of LTE. You'll sell it because there's something better on the market you'll want.
That wasn't all the listener mail that we received this week, but that's all we kind of have the time for. We have a really detailed question that actually I want to get to next week. I'm going to send an email to that person about wireless charging, because we have to do a little research to answer that question. Really good question. So stay tuned. Hey, guys, please, Mike, Philip, John, thank you very much for writing in. Those are all great questions,
Thanks,
great
guys.
comments. Thank you for your compliments.
How do you guys say boss? UK's boss this week. Only UK listeners.
Yeah, the UK was bringing it.
Yeah.
Bring
it on, lads.
Please do write in, lads. Yes, indeed. Podcast@pocketnow.com is the email address. Before we wrap it up here, gents, have you got anything else to add to this hour and a half of techno goodness?
Absolutely. I'm still waiting.
I'm still waiting. It comes full circle. We'll leave it there.
It does. All right. Well, that is going to wrap it up for us for this week on the Pocket Now Weekly podcast. Lucky 13 was the episode, and I had a great time. Feel free to throw a tweet our way. We are on the Twitter sphere at Brandon Miniman, for Brandon Miniman, at Anton D. Nadja, that's ANTONDNAGY for Tony, and at Captain Two Phones for me, the Captain the number 2 Phones, Michael Fisher. Follow Pocket Now's official Twitter account at Pocket Now Tweets, where, if you have not, you should enter our giveaway. I meant to mention this at the top of the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
You should definitely enter. We're giving away 3 Nexus 7s in a partnership giveaway with Amzer. It's a lot of fun. You should enter the contest. It's easy. Don't let anyone tell you it's hard. At Pocket Now Tweets is the name of the account. You can also follow us on Facebook and Google+. Just search for us there. iTunes reviewers, we continue to adore you. Please leave us...
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. Please leave us more reviews if you like the podcast on iTunes. It does actually help us out quite a bit. And if you have a topic, question, or suggestion for the podcast, follow the example of the gentleman from the UK, or if you just want to say hi, email us once again, podcast@pocketnow.com. Thanks so much for listening. As always, we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.